My parents left me nothing. Not a penny, not a word, just my sister's name on everything I was told would be mine. The lawyer said there must have been a mistake, but the letter on my lap was in my mother's handwriting, and it said my name. 38 years of being the good daughter, 38 years of showing up, and they erased me with one signature. They said I was strong. They said I didn't need them. They said a lot of things. None of them were true. I drove to the cemetery and stood over their graves and whispered, "Was I invisible? Was I ever really your daughter?" Then I found a journal of my mother. 30 years of secrets. 30 years of guilt. 30 years of a truth I was never supposed to know. She wrote that I was the child who didn't need saving, so she saved my sister instead, and left me to drown alone. This isn't a story about a will. This is a story about what happens when the people who are supposed to love you choose someone else, and you have to decide if you can ever choose yourself. My name is Julia Margaret Chen, and for 38 years, I thought my name meant something. I thought it meant I was seen. I thought it meant I was chosen. I thought it meant I was loved. I was wrong about all of it. The truth arrived on a Wednesday, not with a bang or a confrontation or any of the dramatic moments I had imagined in my worst nightmares. It arrived quietly in a cream-colored envelope, delivered by a man I had never met who wore a suit that cost more than my car. His name was Mr. Abernathy. He was my parents' attorney. He had silver hair and silver glasses and a voice so calm it made me want to scream before he even opened his mouth. I sat across from him in his corner office, 30 floors above the city, and I watched him arrange papers on his desk with the kind of deliberate slowness that told me he was preparing for something difficult. My parents had died 8 days apart. First my father, suddenly, a heart attack in his garden. Then my mother, as if she had simply decided she didn't want to be here without him. I had held her hand when she went. I had whispered goodbye. I had believed in some foolish, stubborn part of my heart that they had loved me. Mr. Abernathy cleared his throat. "Julia," he said, "thank you for coming. I know this is a difficult time." I nodded. I hadn't slept in days. I hadn't eaten properly in weeks. My grief was a physical thing, a weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. But I was here. I was doing what needed to be done. I was being the responsible daughter, the reliable daughter, the daughter who always showed up. "I have reviewed your parents' estate," Mr. Abernathy continued, "and I have gone over the will multiple times. I wanted to be absolutely certain before I spoke with you." Something cold moved through my veins. "Certain about what?" He removed his glasses and polished them with a small cloth. It was the kind of gesture that was meant to give someone time to prepare, but I didn't know what I was preparing for. "Julia," he said, "your parents left everything to your sister." The words hung in the air between us. I heard them, I understood them, but they did not make sense. "Everything," he repeated. "The house, the savings, the investments, the vineyard." "Everything?" I stared at him. I waited for him to say it was a mistake. I waited for him to laugh and pull out the real will, the one that divided everything fairly, the one that remembered I existed. But he didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He just looked at me with those pale, sympathetic eyes. "My sister," I said. "Catherine?" "Yes, she gets everything." "Yes." I thought about Catherine, 3 years younger than me, dark hair where I was fair, quiet where I was outspoken. Our parents' secret favorite. No, not secret. It had never been a secret, I just hadn't wanted to admit it. When we were children, Catherine got the piano lessons. When we were teenagers, Catherine got the study abroad program in Paris. When we went to college, they paid for her Ivy League tuition and told me they hoped I would be happy at the state school I could afford on my own. I never complained. I never asked why. I told myself it was because Catherine was younger, because she needed more help, because she was more talented, more special, more deserving. I told myself a lot of things. "There's a letter," Mr. Abernathy said. "Your mother wrote it. She wanted you to read it." He slid a white envelope across the polished mahogany desk. My name was on it, Julia, my mother's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. I had seen that handwriting on birthday cards, on recipes taped to the refrigerator, on the labels of the jam she made every summer. It was hers. I didn't open it. I took the envelope. I walked out of his office. I rode the elevator down 30 floors with my reflection staring back at me from the mirrored walls. A woman I didn't recognize, pale and hollow-eyed. I drove home through traffic I didn't see. the envelope on the passenger seat, burning a hole through the paper. I sat in my driveway for 2 hours. When I finally opened it, my hands were shaking so violently that I tore the envelope into 3 pieces. The letter was 2 pages. My mother had never been a woman of few words. "Julia," it began. "My dearest Julia, I know this letter will cause you pain. That is not my intention. I have tried to find the words to explain this for many years, and I have failed every time. Perhaps I am failing now. But I owe you the truth, even if it is a truth you do not want to hear. Catherine has always been different. You know this. From the moment she was born, I knew she was special. She had a light inside her, a brightness that I could not explain. You were bright too, in your own way, but your light was steady. Catherine's was dazzling. I have spent my life protecting her, nurturing her, making sure she had everything she needed to become who she was meant to be. I did not do the same for you. I know that. I have always known it. And I have carried that guilt every single day. But I cannot change what I did. I can only explain it. You were strong, Julia. You were always so strong. You didn't need me the way Catherine did. You didn't need anyone. You were independent and capable and fierce, and I was so proud of you, even if I didn't say it. But Catherine needed me. Catherine needed our resources, our connections, our support. Without us, she would not survive. Without us, she would not thrive. I made a choice. I chose her. And I would make that same choice again, even knowing the pain it would cause you. I hope one day you can forgive me. I hope one day you can understand. But if you cannot, I understand that too. I love you, Julia. I have always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it. Mom, I read it once, twice, 3 times. Then I folded it carefully along the existing creases and placed it back in the torn envelope. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just sat in my dark living room, in the house I had bought with my own money, in the life I had built with my own hands, and I thought about my mother. My beautiful, complicated, impossible mother, who had loved me but not enough, who had seen me but not clearly, who had chosen my sister over me again and again and again and called it necessity. I thought about Catherine. Catherine, who had never asked to be the favorite. Catherine, who had never demanded our parents' attention or approval or money. Catherine, who had simply existed, bright and fragile, and received everything I had worked my whole life to earn. I hated her. I hated myself for hating her. And I hated my mother most of all for making me this person. For turning me into someone who measured love in dollars and inheritance in acres. For teaching me that I was not enough, would never be enough, could never be enough. I did not sleep that night, or the next, or the one after that. I went to work. I edited articles. I attended meetings. I came home and stared at the walls. My husband, Marcus, tried to reach me. He held me, fed me, spoke to me in gentle tones. I could not respond. I was underwater, drowning, and the surface was too far away. "Julia," he said one night, "please talk to me. Tell me what I can do." I looked at him. He was a good man, patient and kind and steady. He had loved me for 15 years, through career changes and family drama and the long, slow grief of watching my parents age. He deserved better than this. "There's nothing you can do," I said. "They left everything to Catherine, the house, the vineyard, everything." His face changed. Not surprise, he had known about the will, had held me the night I came home from Mr. Abernathy's office. But something else, something that looked like fear. "Julia," he said carefully, "what are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. Catherine called me 17 times in the first week. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. "Julia, please call me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Julia, I don't want this. I'm going to talk to a lawyer. We can split everything equally. Please just talk to me. Julia, I'm begging you. I can't lose you too. Please." I deleted them all. She sent emails. I marked them as unread and never opened them. She sent a letter, handwritten, delivered to my office. I put it in my desk drawer and closed the drawer and tried to forget it existed. I could not forget. Every night, I lay awake and thought about my sister. I thought about our childhood, the years before I understood that we were not equal in our parents' eyes. I thought about the games we played, the secrets we shared, the way she used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms and press her cold feet against my legs and whisper, "Julia, I'm scared." I thought about the summer she almost died. She was 7, I was 10. We were at the lake, our family's property, the one that was now hers. Catherine had never been a strong swimmer. She was timid in the water, hesitant, always reaching for our father's hand. But that day, she had seen a turtle near the dock and she had wanted to get closer. She had let go of his hand. She had stepped off the edge into water that was over her head. I saw it happen. I was on the dock, tying my shoe. I heard the splash and I turned and she was gone, just gone, a ripple on the surface and then nothing. I didn't think. I jumped in after her. The water was cold and dark. I couldn't see anything. I reached out blindly, my lungs burning and my hand touched her arm. I grabbed her and pulled her up, kicked hard, broke the surface gasping. My father was there by then, lifting her from my arms, carrying her to shore. She was coughing, crying, alive. That night my mother sat on my bed and held my hand. "You saved her," she said. "You saved your sister." I remember feeling proud. I remember thinking, now she knows. Now she sees what I can do. But she didn't see, she never saw. Catherine was the one who nearly drowned. Catherine was the one who needed saving. Catherine was the one who received all the attention and care and concern in the weeks that followed. I was just the rescuer. Incidental. Forgettable. I had saved my sister's life, and my mother had thanked me once and then moved on. I had spent my whole life saving Catherine. Not just from drowning, but from everything. From bullies and bad grades and broken hearts. From the consequences of her own choices, the mistakes she made, the paths she wandered down. I was always there, steady and reliable, catching her when she fell. And now she had fallen into an inheritance that should have been half mine. And I was supposed to be grateful that she was willing to share it. 2 weeks after the reading of the will, I drove to the Vineyard. It was our family's land, 30 acres in the hills of Northern California. My grandparents had bought it in the 1950s, planted the first vines, built the small stone house that my parents had expanded and renovated over the years. It was beautiful there, quiet and green and timeless. I had spent every summer of my childhood running through those rows, chasing Catherine, hiding from our parents in the shade of the old oak tree. Now the vineyard was Catherine's, and I was standing at the edge of it, watching the sun set over the hills, and I had never felt so empty. "I thought you might come here." I turned. Catherine was standing behind me at the edge of the gravel driveway. She looked smaller than I remembered, thinner. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. "I didn't want to see you," I said. "I know." She took a step closer. "I don't blame you." We stood in silence for a long moment. The sun continued its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang. "Do you remember," Catherine said quietly, "the summer I almost drowned?" I flinched. "Yes. I remember it too, not all of it, just fragments, the cold water, the darkness, and then your hand pulling me up." She paused. "I've never forgotten that, I've never forgotten you." I didn't respond. "I know you think I don't see you," she continued. "I know you think I've spent my whole life taking everything and giving nothing back, and maybe that's true. Maybe I have been selfish and blind and ungrateful, but I never meant to hurt you, I never meant to make you feel less than." "You didn't make me feel anything," I said. "Our parents did that." "I know, but I didn't stop it. I didn't question it. I just accepted everything they gave me and pretended not to notice that you got nothing." Her voice broke. "That's on me, that's my fault, and I am so sorry." I looked at her, my sister. The girl I had saved from drowning, from heartbreak, from herself. The girl our mother had loved more, chosen more, valued more. The girl who had never asked to be the favorite but had never refused the title either. "Sorry isn't enough," I said. "I know. Sorry doesn't change anything. I know. Sorry doesn't give me back the 38 years I spent trying to earn love that was never mine to have." Catherine was crying now. Silent tears streaming down her face. "I know." I turned away from her. I looked at the vineyard, the rows of vines heavy with grapes, the old stone house, the oak tree, all of it hers now. All of it taken from me before I ever had a chance to claim it. "I'm not going to fight the will," I said. "I don't want your money, I don't want the house or the vineyard or any of it. Julia, but I don't want you either." My voice was flat. "Dead, I don't want a sister who benefits from my pain. I don't want a relationship that's built on guilt and obligation. I don't want to pretend that everything is fine when it's not." Catherine made a sound, something between a sob and a gasp. "Please, please don't say that." "I've spent my whole life saving you," I said. "I'm done." I walked away. I got in my car and I drove back to the city and I did not look back. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I went through the motions. I woke up, I went to work, I came home, I ate, I slept. I was a ghost in my own life, present but not really there. Marcus tried to reach me. My friends tried to reach me. I pushed them all away. I started going through my parents' house. Catherine had given me a key. She had told me to take anything I wanted. She had called and emailed and texted, and I had ignored all of it. But I needed to be there. I needed to understand. The house was empty now, stripped of furniture and photographs and all the small objects that had made it a home. My parents were gone, and their belongings were scattered to charity shops and estate sales and the homes of distant relatives. All that remained was what they had left behind. What no one wanted. I found it in the attic. A small wooden box, hidden behind a stack of old Christmas decorations. It was locked, but the key was taped to the bottom, as if someone had wanted it to be found. Inside were letters. Letters from my mother to her mother. Letters from my father to his father. Letters spanning decades, from before I was born to just a few months before my parents' deaths. I sat on the dusty attic floor and I read every single one, and I learned the truth. My mother had not always favored Catherine. In the beginning, before Catherine was born, I had been her everything. Her letters to my grandmother were filled with joy and wonder, and a love so fierce it made my chest ache. Julia took her first steps today. She walked right into my arms and laughed, and I thought my heart would burst. Julia said her first word. It was Mama. I cried for an hour. Julia is so bright, so curious, so full of life. I never knew I could love someone this much. And then Catherine was born, and everything changed. Catherine was born with a weak heart, a tiny defect, barely detectable, but enough to make her fragile, enough to make my mother afraid. The letters from that time were different. Less joy, more fear, more worry, more desperate prayers for her youngest daughter's survival. Catherine is so small, so delicate. I'm terrified every moment that something will happen to her. I don't know how to protect her. I don't know how to keep her safe. Julia is fine. She's healthy and strong and independent. She doesn't need me the way Catherine does. I know that's a blessing. I know I should be grateful. But sometimes I look at her and I feel like I'm failing her. Like I'm so focused on Catherine that I'm forgetting to be her mother. I wish I could be enough for both of them. The letters continued through my childhood. My mother wrote about my achievements, my good grades, my awards, my acceptance to college. She wrote about them with pride, but also with distance, as if she was reporting news instead of celebrating her daughter. Julia got a scholarship. She's going to be a journalist. I don't know where she gets her talent, not from me. Julia got married today. She looked beautiful. Marcus seems like a good man. I hope she's happy. Julia had a baby, a boy. They named him Samuel. I held him today and I thought about how I used to hold her all those years ago. Where did the time go? And then, a letter written 6 months before my mother died. I saw Julia today. She came for dinner and brought Samuel with her. He's 7 years old now, so tall, so smart. I watched her with him and I saw myself, the mother I used to be before I forgot how to be present. She's better than me. She's patient and kind, and she looks at him like he's the whole world. I don't know where she learned that. Not from me. I think about the choices I made, the ways I failed her. The years I spent pouring all my love into Catherine because I was afraid she would die, and I forgot that Julia was alive and standing right in front of me, waiting for me to see her. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to go back and be the mother she deserved. I don't know how to tell her that I love her, that I have always loved her, that my failure to show it was my failure, not hers. I hope she knows. I hope she understands. I hope it's not too late. It was too late. She died before she could tell me. Before I could tell her that I had spent 38 years waiting for her to see me, and I was so tired of waiting. I sat in my parents' attic with letters scattered around me, and I cried. I cried for the little girl who had walked into her mother's arms and laughed. I cried for the teenager who had believed her parents were proud of her. I cried for the woman who had spent 38 years believing she was not enough. And then I stopped crying, because I realized something. My mother had loved me, not the way she loved Catherine. That love was born of fear and necessity and the desperate need to protect. But she had loved me. She had loved me from the beginning, before Catherine existed, before she forgot how to show it. She had loved me, and she had lost that love somewhere along the way, and she had never known how to find it again. But it had been there, all those years, buried under fear and guilt and the weight of her own inadequacy. It had been there. I took the letters, all of them. I put them in my bag and I carried them out of that empty house and I drove home through the golden California hills and I did not look back. I didn't call Catherine, I wasn't ready. But I stopped deleting her messages. I listened to them, one by one, in the dark of my bedroom while Marcus slept beside me. Her voice, desperate and broken and so familiar. Julia, I'm selling the Vineyard. I can't keep it. It doesn't feel right without you. Julia, I'm donating most of the money to a foundation for children with heart defects. In Mom's memory. Julia, I'm moving. I can't stay here. Everything reminds me of you. Julia, I miss you. I miss my sister. Please come back to me. I didn't come back, not yet. But I started to think about what it would mean to try. 6 months passed. I went to therapy. I sat on a couch in a small, quiet office, and I told a stranger everything. About my mother's letters and my father's silence and my sister's inheritance. About the years of waiting and the years of resentment and the long, slow work of unlearning the belief that I was not enough. My therapist was a woman named Dr. Reyes. She had kind eyes and a calm voice, and she never told me what to feel. She just listened and asked questions and helped me find my own answers. What do you want? She asked one day. Not what you think you should want, not what your parents wanted, not what your sister wants. What do you want? I thought about it for a long time. I want to stop being angry, I said. I want to stop measuring my worth by what I didn't get. I want to forgive my mother. I want to forgive myself. I want to be free. And your sister? I closed my eyes. I don't know. That's okay, Dr. Reyes said. You don't have to know yet. You just have to keep asking the question. I kept asking. I asked myself what I would say to Catherine if I saw her again. I asked myself what I needed from her to begin healing. I asked myself if forgiveness was something I could give or if it was something I had to earn. I didn't have answers, but I was asking the questions, and that was a start. Samuel turned 9 years old. We had a party at our house, balloons and cake and a piñata shaped like a dinosaur. Marcus grilled hamburgers in the backyard. My friends came with their children. It was loud and chaotic and perfect. And Catherine came. She stood at the edge of the backyard, uncertain, holding a wrapped gift. She had called me the day before, her voice tentative, and asked if she could come. I had said yes. I don't know why. I don't know what changed. Something had shifted inside me slowly over the months of therapy and reflection and grief. I was not ready to forgive her, but I was ready to try. Hi, she said. Hi. She handed me the gift. It's for Samuel, a telescope. He told me once he wanted to be an astronaut. I took the gift. Thank you. We stood in awkward silence. Samuel ran past, chasing a friend with a water balloon. He didn't notice his aunt. He didn't know that she had been absent from his life for 6 months, that his mother had been too broken to let her in. He's grown so much, Catherine said. Yes, he looks like you. At that age. I looked at my son, his dark hair and bright eyes, his joyful laugh. He did look like me. He looked like the little girl I had been before I learned that love was something you had to earn. I used to think I was invisible, I said. When I was his age, I thought no one saw me. I thought I didn't matter. Catherine was quiet. I don't want him to feel that way. I don't want him to spend his life waiting for someone to notice him. I want him to know every single day that he is seen and loved and valued, not because of what he does, just because he exists. He knows, Catherine said. I can see it, the way he looks at you, the way he runs to you when he's hurt or scared or excited. He knows you're there. He knows you see him. I watched my son play. He fell down, scraped his knee, cried for a moment. And then he got up and ran back to his friends, laughing. I want that, I said. For myself, I want to know that I'm seen. Catherine reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were cold, shaking slightly. I see you, she whispered. I have always seen you. I just didn't know how to tell you. I didn't pull away. The party continued around us. Children screamed and laughed. Adults talked and ate and drank. The sun moved across the sky, casting long shadows across the grass. And I held my sister's hand. That night, after the guests had gone and Samuel was asleep and Marcus was reading in bed, I sat alone in my living room and I thought about my mother. I thought about the letter she had written me, the one I had carried in my purse for 6 months without opening. I had read it so many times I had memorized it, but tonight I took it out and read it again, slowly, carefully, as if seeing it for the first time. I love you, Julia. I have always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it. I believed her now, not because the letter was convincing, not because I had found evidence in the attic, but because I had finally, after 38 years, stopped waiting for her to prove it. Love didn't have to be earned. It didn't have to be deserved. It just had to be received, and I was ready to receive it. The next morning, I drove to the cemetery. My parents were buried side by side under a large oak tree that cast dappled shadows across their headstones. I had not visited since the funeral. I had been too angry, too hurt, too afraid of what I might feel, but I was not afraid anymore. I stood at their graves and I talked to them. I told my mother that I had read her letters, all of them, and that I understood now. I understood that she had loved me and failed me and loved me still. I told her that I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved to be free. I told my father that I missed him, that I wished he had spoken more, shared more, let me in, that I knew he had loved me in his own quiet way, and that I was grateful for the years we had. And then I told them both goodbye. Not the angry goodbye I had said in my heart 1,000 times, not the bitter goodbye of a daughter who had been denied her inheritance, but a peaceful goodbye, a loving goodbye, a goodbye that finally, truly, let them go. Catherine and I met for coffee the following week. We were awkward at first, stumbling over small talk, avoiding the difficult topics. But slowly, gradually, we began to find our way back to each other. She told me about her plans for the vineyard. She was keeping it, after all. She had hired a manager to run the day-to-day operations, but she was spending more time there, learning the business, falling in love with the land. I never appreciated it when we were kids, she said. I just thought of it as the place we went every summer, but now I see it differently. It's our history, our legacy. I don't want to lose that. I told her about my work. I was writing a book, a memoir about inheritance and family and the long shadow of parental love. It was difficult and painful and the most honest thing I had ever done. It's about Mom, I said, and Dad, and you, and me. It's about everything we never talked about. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Are you going to write about the will?" "Yes." "Are you going to write about how I took everything from you?" I looked at her. Her face was open, vulnerable. She was not defensive or accusatory, she was just asking. "You didn't take anything," I said. "Our parents gave it to you, that wasn't your fault." But I kept it, even after I knew. Even after I saw how much it hurt you. You tried to give it back, you tried to share it. I was the one who refused. Because I hurt you, because I made you feel like you didn't matter. I reached across the table and took her hand. We hurt each other. That's what happens when you grow up in a family that doesn't know how to love equally. You learn to compete instead of connect. You learn to measure love in dollars and attention and approval. You learn to believe that there's not enough to go around. Catherine was crying, so was I, but it's not true, I continued. There is enough. There has always been enough. We just didn't know how to see it. We sat in that coffee shop, 2 women in our 30s, crying over cold lattes. The barista glanced at us nervously. The other customers pretended not to notice. And I didn't care. I was too busy holding my sister's hand. "I don't want the money," I said. "I don't want the house or the vineyard or any of it. I never did. I just wanted you to see me. I just wanted to know that I mattered." "You matter," Catherine whispered. "You have always mattered. You are the bravest person I know. You are the reason I survived. Not just in the water all those years ago, but every day since. You saved me, Julia. You saved me and you never stopped saving me and I never thanked you. You're thanking me now? It's not enough. It's a start." We sat in silence for a long time. The afternoon light shifted, grew softer, began to fade. Outside, the city moved on without us. "I want to show you something," Catherine said finally. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather-bound book. It was old, worn, the cover cracked and faded. She handed it to me. I opened it. The pages were filled with my mother's handwriting, not letters this time, something else, a journal. "I found it in the attic," Catherine said. "After you came to the vineyard. I was looking for something, I don't even remember what, and I found this." I turned the pages slowly. My mother's voice filled my head, familiar and strange. She wrote about her fears, her regrets, her hopes. She wrote about my father, their marriage, the life they had built together. She wrote about Catherine and me, and then I reached an entry dated 15 years ago. "Julia got married today. She looked beautiful." I watched her walk down the aisle and I thought about the day she was born, how I held her in my arms and promised to love her forever. I have not kept that promise, not the way I should have. I have spent so many years focused on Catherine, on keeping her safe, on making sure she had everything she needed. I told myself it was because she was fragile, because she needed me more. But that was a lie. The truth is that I was afraid. Afraid of losing her, afraid of my own inadequacy, afraid of the love I felt for Julia because it reminded me of everything I was not. Julia does not need me. She never has. She is strong and capable and independent. She has built a life without my help, without my approval, without my love, and I am so proud of her. But I am also ashamed, because she should not have had to do it alone. I don't know how to tell her this. I don't know how to apologize for years of absence, years of neglect, years of choosing her sister over her. I don't know if she would even want to hear it. But I am writing this down so that someday, somehow, she will know, I love you, Julia, I have always loved you. And I am so sorry I forgot to show it. I closed the book. I didn't cry. I was too full for tears. I just sat there, holding my mother's journal, feeling the weight of her words settle into my chest. She had loved me. She had loved me all along. She just hadn't known how to say it. I thought you should have it, Catherine said. It's yours. It was always meant to be yours. I looked at her. My sister. My mother's favorite, my rival, my partner, my other half. She had given me the only inheritance that mattered, not money or property or status, but the truth. Thank you, I said. She nodded. You're welcome. We finished our coffee. We walked out of the cafe together into the fading afternoon light. The city hummed around us, indifferent and alive. And for the first time in 38 years, I did not feel invisible. I felt seen. The book took me 2 years to write. I wrote in the mornings, before Samuel woke up, when the house was quiet and the light was soft. I wrote in the afternoons, during my lunch break, hunched over my laptop in the newspaper office. I wrote at night, after Marcus was asleep, the words spilling out of me in a torrent I could not control. I wrote about my mother, her fears and her failures and her fierce, imperfect love. I wrote about my father, his silence and his steadiness and the quiet devotion he had shown in 1,000 small ways I had never noticed until he was gone. I wrote about Catherine, our rivalry and our reconciliation and the long, slow work of becoming sisters again. And I wrote about myself, the little girl who had walked into her mother's arms and laughed, the teenager who had believed she was not enough, the woman who had spent 38 years waiting to be seen. The book was published on a Tuesday. I did not expect it to find an audience. It was a memoir, after all, the story of one family's private pain. I thought maybe a few people would read it, maybe my colleagues at the newspaper would be polite, maybe Catherine would buy a dozen copies and distribute them to her friends. I was wrong. The book became a bestseller. Not because I was a brilliant writer, though I worked hard to be one. Not because my story was unique, though I had once believed it was. But because so many people saw themselves in it. Daughters who had been overlooked. Sons who had been forgotten. Siblings who had been pitted against each other by parents who didn't know any better. I received thousands of letters. From women whose mothers had favored their brothers. From men whose fathers had left everything to their sisters. From children who had spent their whole lives trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I answered every letter. I told them what I had learned. That love was not a prize to be won. That inheritance was not a measure of worth. That the only approval that mattered was the approval we gave ourselves. I told them that they were enough. They had always been enough. They just didn't know it yet. Catherine came to my book launch. She stood in the back of the crowded bookstore, holding a copy of my memoir, watching me speak. When I finished, she was the first person to approach me. "I'm proud of you," she said. I always have been. I believed her. We walked out of the bookstore together into the cool night air. The city sparkled around us, lights and shadows and the endless hum of traffic. Catherine linked her arm through mine. "What's next?" she asked. I thought about it. My book was published. My grief was processed. My relationship with my sister was healing. My son was growing taller every day. My marriage was strong. My work was meaningful. What was next? "I don't know," I said. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything," Catherine laughed. It was a sound I had not heard in years, light and free. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." We walked in silence for a while, past closed shops and empty cafes and apartment buildings glowing with warm yellow light. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere a baby cried. The city was alive with ordinary moments, tiny miracles, the quiet drama of people living their lives. "Do you ever think about what it would have been like?" Catherine asked. "If Mom and Dad had done things differently?" I considered the question. I had spent years thinking about it, imagining alternate realities where I was the favorite, where I received the piano lessons and the study abroad programs and the Ivy League tuition. But those fantasies had faded over time. They belonged to the woman I used to be, the one who measured love in dollars and approval in achievements. "Sometimes," I said, "but not the way I used to. I don't wonder what I would have gotten. I wonder who I would have been." "Who do you think you would have been?" I thought about it. The same person, just less angry, less hungry, less desperate to prove myself. I paused. I don't know if that would have been better. My anger taught me things. My hunger pushed me forward. My desperation made me fight for a life I actually wanted, not the one I was supposed to want. "You're saying you're grateful?" "No, I'm saying I've made peace with it." "There's a difference." Catherine nodded slowly. "I've been trying to make peace too, with being the favorite, with carrying the weight of their expectations, with knowing that everything I have came at your expense." "It didn't," I said. "You earned what you have. The inheritance was given, but your career, your relationships, your life, those are yours. You built them." "I built them on a foundation they gave me. Tuition, connections, a safety net. You didn't have that." "No, but I had something else." I stopped walking and turned to face her. I had the freedom to fail, to figure things out on my own, to build something that was entirely mine, not handed down or expected or approved. I wouldn't trade that for anything. Catherine looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. "You really mean that," she said. "I really do." She hugged me then, tight and fierce, the way she used to when we were children. I hugged her back. We stood there on the sidewalk, two women in our 40s, holding each other under the streetlights. People walked past us, barely glancing. To them, we were just two friends embracing. They didn't know we were sisters who had spent years estranged, and years healing, and years learning how to love each other again. They didn't know we had finally found our way back. The Vineyard bloomed that spring. Catherine called me on a Sunday morning, her voice bright with excitement. The vines were heavy with grapes, the weather was perfect, and she was hosting a small gathering to celebrate the start of harvest season. Would I come? I would. I drove up on Friday, alone, the windows down and music playing. The hills were golden in the afternoon light, dotted with oaks and vineyards and small farmhouses. I had made this drive hundreds of times as a child, sitting in the backseat with Catherine, counting the miles until we reached our grandparents' house. Now I was making it alone, but I was not lonely. Catherine met me at the driveway. She was wearing jeans and muddy boots, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked happy, peaceful, at home. "Welcome to my crazy adventure," she said, grinning. "It looks good on you." She showed me around the property. The old stone house had been renovated, updated with modern appliances and fresh paint, but it still held the same warmth I remembered. The oak tree was still there, its branches spreading wide over the backyard. The vines stretched out in neat rows, heavy with fruit. "I'm learning the business," Catherine said. "Slowly, I hired a manager, but I want to be involved. I want to understand every part of it." "Why?" She considered the question. "Because it's ours, our families. I don't want to just own it. I want to be part of it. I want to honor what our grandparents built. They'd be proud of you." "I hope so." She paused. "I hope you're proud of me too." I looked at my sister. She was not the fragile child I had saved from drowning, not the favored daughter who had received everything I wanted. She was a woman, complex and imperfect, and trying her best. "I am," I said, "very proud." Her smile was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. That evening, we sat on the porch and watched the sunset paint the hills in shades of gold and pink and deep violet. Catherine opened a bottle of wine from the Vineyard, our grandparents' vintage, saved from the year they planted the first vines. "To family," she said, raising her glass. "To family," I echoed. We drank. The wine was rich and complex, tasting of earth and sun and history. I closed my eyes and let it settle on my tongue. "Do you remember," Catherine said, "the summer Grandma taught us how to make jam?" I smiled. I remember burning my hand on the pot and crying for an hour. You were such a drama queen. I was 7. You cried so loudly that Grandpa came running from the barn, convinced someone had died. We laughed together, the sound echoing across the quiet vineyard. It was the first time we had laughed like that in years. It felt like coming home. I miss them, Catherine said. Grandma and Grandpa, Mom and Dad, I miss all of them. I know, me too. Even with everything that happened. All the pain and the secrets and the choices they made, I still miss them. I thought about my mother, her letters, her journal, her imperfect love. I thought about my father, his silence, his steadiness, his quiet devotion. I thought about all the things I wished I had said to them, all the conversations we never had. I miss them too, I said, and I forgive them. Catherine looked at me. Really? Really? It took a long time, a lot of therapy, a lot of tears. But I finally understand that they did the best they could with what they had. It wasn't enough. It wasn't fair, but it was all they knew how to give. Is that enough, understanding? No, but it's a start. And I'm learning that starts are all we ever get. We just keep trying, over and over, to get it right. Catherine was quiet for a long time. The sun continued its slow descent, the sky deepening from pink to purple to the first hints of stars. I want to try, she said finally, to get it right, with you, with our family, with this place. She gestured at the vineyard, the hills, the fading light. I don't want to repeat their mistakes. I don't want to love one person more than another. I don't want to measure worth in achievements or success or anything else. Then don't, I said. Choose differently. I'm trying, every day. I reached over and took her hand. That's all any of us can do. We sat together in the darkness, 2 sisters under a canopy of stars. The vineyard slept around us, the vines heavy with fruit, waiting for the harvest. The house glowed behind us, warm and welcoming. And for the first time in our lives, we were exactly where we were meant to be. Samuel is 17 now. He's taller than me, with his father's broad shoulders and my mother's sharp wit. He's applying to colleges, dreaming of becoming an astrophysicist, of studying the stars he first saw through the telescope his aunt gave him when he was 9. He doesn't remember that birthday party. He doesn't remember the awkwardness between his mother and her sister, the careful distance, the tentative steps toward reconciliation. He only remembers that Aunt Catherine gave him a telescope, and that she came to his parties and his school plays and his soccer games, year after year, until she was as much a part of his life as I was. That is the gift I gave him, not money or property or status, but family, real family. The kind that shows up again and again, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when it would be easier to stay away. That is the inheritance I chose. Catherine never married. She says she's married to the vineyard, and I believe her. She has built something beautiful there, something that honors our grandparents' legacy while creating something entirely her own. Her wine has won awards. Her story has been featured in magazines. She is respected and admired, and I think genuinely happy. But she is also alone. And sometimes, late at night, she calls me and we talk for hours about nothing and everything. Do you ever regret it? She asked me recently. Not taking the money, not fighting the will. We were sitting on her porch, watching another sunset paint the hills in gold and pink. Some things never change. No, I said. I never regret it. Why not? I thought about it. I thought about the years of anger and grief and longing. I thought about the letters in the attic and the journal and my mother's final words. I thought about the book I wrote and the people who read it and the thousands of letters I answered. Because if I had fought the will, I said, I would have won money, but I would have lost you. And you're worth more than all of it. Catherine didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. The sun set. The stars emerged. 2 sisters sat together in the darkness, holding hands, watching the sky, and that was enough. That was everything. I am Julia Margaret Chen. I am a writer, a mother, a wife, a sister. I am the daughter of parents who loved me imperfectly and failed me deeply and gave me the greatest gift of all, the opportunity to become someone they never could have imagined. I did not receive my inheritance. I did not get the money or the house or the vineyard. I did not get the love I spent 38 years waiting for, but I got something better. I got the truth. I got the letters and the journal and the slow, painful understanding that my mother loved me even when she couldn't show it. I got my sister, not as a rival or a reminder of what I lacked, but as a partner and a friend. I got myself whole and healed and finally at peace. This is my story. It is not a story of revenge, though there is justice in it. It is not a story of forgiveness, though there is grace in it. It is not a story of triumph, though there is victory in it. This is a story of inheritance. Not the inheritance of money or property or status, but the inheritance of wounds and wisdom, of grief and grace, of love that was lost and lost again and found again, stronger each time. I inherited my mother's fear and my father's silence. I inherited my sister's guilt and my grandparents' legacy. I inherited a lifetime of questions and a handful of answers and the stubborn determination to keep asking, keep seeking, keep hoping. And I inherited the freedom to choose. I chose to break the cycle. I chose to love my son without conditions, to see him clearly and celebrate him fully, and tell him every single day that he is enough. I chose to build a marriage on honesty and partnership and mutual respect. I chose to write my truth and share it with the world, knowing that some would judge me and some would thank me and some would see themselves in my story and finally feel less alone. I chose my sister, not because she deserved it, not because she earned it, but because I deserved to have her in my life. I deserve to heal, I deserve to be free, and I am free, free from the weight of their expectations, free from the hunger for their approval, free from the belief that love is something you earn, something you measure, something you compete for. I am free. And that is the greatest inheritance of all.